88.5 Sofa FM is now on 9 minutes after the hour of 10 a.m. in Surface and Ocean Eastern Caribbean. And of course, it's another edition of House Guest. With me is no other than the celebrity chef himself, Chef Orlando Satchell. Let me begin by extending congratulations to you on yet another accolade. You just keep on getting better and better.
I don't know, great.
Congratulations.
But thank you, Els guest, and thank you, Els, for inviting me. And good morning, Super. It's nice to be here, actually. I mean, these awards are about promoting Super, raising and keeping St. Lucia in the, international media. I wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. I mean, running a small restaurant next to a location that everybody keeps complaining about. It's like it's interesting, but we are the best location, and I think at the end of the day, you have to deliver what we deliver. And to be recognized as the only in the only restaurant from St. Lucia on the top 50, is a real plus for us. I mean, so I really appreciate that. I mean, and again, it's down to the staff. It's down to the staff and also the community at large. And generally, my food vendors really kind of help to showcase that opportunity.
Thank you so much. With that being said, our last conversation, we were actually looking at the various restaurants in Sufre, where I believe if everybody could come on board to have a food
Yeah.
or an app, which would make it a lot easier and even more convenient for persons to reach them as well.
Yeah, I think I must say that after my departure from the hotel, sometimes people say, "Oh, I left the hotel. Whatever they still in the hotel." I like to think that imagine if I was still there, I wouldn't be Orlando's restaurant. So I like to think that my journey to an independent restaurant in the community, along with the other restaurants down here, is a really plus for Safeway. How do we move forward though? I think we need to come unified together as the restaurant in the community and find ways to sort of support each other. At the end of the day, we all deliver something unique to our guests when they come. It shouldn't be a case of go to Orlando's to not to go to a restaurant. It's about going to different restaurants. The better quality restaurant we have in Soufrière, the more guests come down to Soufrière. So I would love that conversation one day. Maybe one of your shows, you can invite a few of us restaurateurs to come together on your show and have a discussion. What I mean, as a way forward. And I think I would love to have other restaurateurs in together, maybe on Super FM, and let's figure a way how we can unify our community, promote the cuisine of St. Lucia.
Yeah, definitely, whatever is based to enhance culinary.
Absolutely. Yeah.
With that being said, how are you able to do it, Chef? What is it, what is your innovation all about? What inspires you
Well,
to keep ranking?
at the end of the day, my simple word is called share the love. I mean, and everybody goes, "Oh, Lando, keep saying share the love, share the love." And I've also, my lady keeps saying, "Baby, when you share the love, where's my love?" But the definition of share the love is respectability, communication, respectability, check each other, support each other. Sharing the love isn't about physical things, about respect, acknowledgement, and more community work communication. I think we don't do enough of that. I mean, if the global world is anything to watch right now, we ourselves in the Pursuit Fair and St. Lucia need to figure out how do we share the love. How do we look at supporting more local, buy more local, shopping more community. I always say buy locally, buy regionally, buy internationally. So we need to figure out how do we gather ourselves in that share the love concept. And by the way, the word share the love means SDL, St. Lucia. So that's the reason behind share the love. But I really think I would love to see what I do at my restaurant is very simple. Right now, since COVID, one decided not to do no menus. We have allowed that I go in and whatever ingredients I buy locally, I produce a menu. And we allow the guests to come in and we sit down and we'll deliver a 5-course tasting menu, use as much local as possible. Again, I guess I come to trust because people will have to trust you to know that you can deliver something unique, I think when you look at the way our cuisine is presented right now in St. Lucia, we don't do enough of those local stuff. I think the idea that people come to the Caribbean to taste the best of the Caribbean, and not the best of New York or the best of Italy. I'm not saying we cannot do that, but the best cuisine in St. Lucia in the Caribbean should be Caribbean. And I think that's been my mission for the last 40 years now, is to try to change that mentality that we now understand the value of our Caribbean cuisine. How do we get people to try those local flavors? And maybe sometimes the way our local food presents, sometimes, not to take away from it, but maybe our presentation could elevate it to another level. You see? So I think that's what we're trying to do at the restaurant. And a big shout out to my chefs, Chef Andrina and Chef Akima, and definitely I know Chris, my manager, and Miss Jane, Miss Leo, and there's one missing there. I'll say that anyway, and she knows something. But the point I'm making too is that promoting and making sure we do and make sure the flavor represents the Caribbean. That's where it comes down to. The flavor need to say this is St. Lucia, this is the Caribbean, and we're defined by what we do.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that. And I'm really happy that you're taking the time to actually give a shout out to the team because they're also part of the experience that is happening as well. It's a team effort. Though you may sit here and take all the praises, but definitely you would not have gotten that far without the support of your
Well,
team.
I always remind myself that my name is Orlando, but the restaurant's called Orlando's. So by
Definitely.
definition, it's a team effort. I mean, and we've been in business now for 12 years or more. It's our 13th year. Many people have passed through my door. Some people are still upset. Some people dislike, don't like. I can't argue with those people. But the team that I presently have now for pretty much nearly Miss Cheney been with 5 years or over 5 years, but the staff there have been with a couple of years now, some of them. So whatever recognition that we're accomplishing is based on the team's effort to keep producing.
Definitely.
And I mean, I think ultimately we just need to be consistent. Being recognized as top 50 restaurant in the Caribbean is a big feast. Okay, now it carries a lot of weight as well. The expectation that oh well, top 50, we got to make sure we're consistent in what we do, because clearly we are the only restaurant on that list from St. Lucia, which in itself I take it as a quite a sense of pride and respectability. I appreciate that acknowledgement. I think it's possible to do a unique restaurant, making sure you focus on the cuisine and the experience, not just the location. Of course, every said location makes a difference, but I think if my restaurant is any testimony next to a cemetery, no parking spots, and I think what we do, and we still manage to accomplish these awards. It's kind of a testament to what we do as a team. So I'm very appreciative of those recognition. But I think it's also um, a plus for Sufra. I think when we're seeing all big up our applause to people like Julia Halford getting her accomplishment and keep winning these awards. I think someone like Sufra now doing what we're doing. Orlando's. I saw yesterday on the news, Massey Stores, or Massey Stores in Sufra was recognized as the best Massey store on the island for customer service. I was like, wow, okay. I think I want to big them up as well, because they're also showing that they can do the right thing and keep the good work up. I mean, I spend a lot of money in masters anyway, but I would say that we need to give people we're quick to jump on person when mistakes happens, but we're not quick to acknowledge their accomplishments. And I think since Match is open there, I know that people have their opinions, but at least what they're doing though is giving our community and raising the profile of the community. So again, a little shout out to Masters. I'm going to tell the people who is listening from the community, when you go to Masters, give them their congratulations, give them their flowers, even if by give them a few words of praise. It doesn't hurt to say, share the love, as I have to say.
Definitely. And even with that discussion, let me just pinpoint in terms of how does, the St. Lucian culture And of course, the tradition, again, we know that you're Jamaican, if I would say,
Yeah.
influence the dishes that you create at Orlando's.
Well,
How you measure those.
well, it's interesting because my mom is Jamaican, my dad's Barbadian, and I've been in nearly 30 years. But in fairness, some of my dishes, surprisingly, I've been doing for over 25, 30 years already. It's not like I came up with them overnight. You know what I mean? Sometimes there is a imagination of the process. Like, for instance, macamboo. And I mean, the idea of macamboo, using make a macamboo gratin or macamboo soup. What? Macamboo soup?
I've
Yeah.
never heard of it.
You know what I'm saying? But you have to think of the ingredients and then say, what can I think outside of the box of that? Making a jam with mackerel, you know what I'm saying, which I'm going to bring for you today actually. The mackerel jam and mackerel plantain and with a tamarind jam, So basically, you have to kind of don't limit your mind to the books. I also have people, a cookbook is a guideline to an idea. You can look at the recipe, decide that, okay, what I don't like, take that out, put that in, and transfer it. If something is saying use potato, then why don't you try using green banana or using sweet potato? You know what I mean? So, you put your twist on it. If something is saying use salmon, then use blue marlin or use kingfish. You can, different texture, but it kind of delivers the same experience. So what I'm trying to say, a lot of these books are written for international, but we got to localize it to our version. What we can do it locally, not on the ground. That's the point of view. But there's no science to it. It's just a preparation of mind and an open vision. When I go to the market in the morning, I must say, I go to the market and I see what ingredients they have. Sometimes I don't need, but I'm always spending because I think, I'm very appreciative of the food vendors who have come a long way. Many of our professional people today have accomplished their accomplishment through the food vendors. And the food vendors get there early in the morning, and now you have lawyers, doctors, radio presenters, TV personalities, who have accomplished their success on the back of vendors. So I think that's critically important to acknowledge them. So I really like going there, having Gemma, one of my people down there. There's a few of them now that I really appreciate.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Chef. Can you talk us through one signature dish on your menu? Definitely, that best represents the spirit of Orlando's. I hope it's not the Macambo.
No, no, actually, I have to say to you that, I just finished doing, I call it independent Go Cuisine Challenge, which we involved in the last 2 months. The idea was to create a dish using green fig and salted fish, or saltfish, I mean. And the competition was that I'm obviously the executive producer of the show, and also the judge, the main judge of the show. So you can look on YouTube right now. And the idea was that I wanted to, like every year we do independence, we come out independent, and we don't acknowledge the food, our national dishes. I mean, our national dish of St. Lucia is an amazing dish. But again, we need to present it to an audience who are not familiar with it. So the idea of the competition was to make sure you use those two components in a more different but creative way. I mean, I've done it in my restaurant for many years now. I make a green banana soup. I take you take onions, you take green banana, fresh turmeric, and then you cook it down and use a vegetable stock, and then blend it with a little coconut milk, and then you make a salted salsa, boiling saltfish, strain it off, and then dice up some onions and cucumber, and make a salsa and serve with the soup. And that's my green pig and saltfish. But the young man who won the competition was a young man from Las Four, and he did a sushi. Like, he took the green banana, he cooked it down, he mashed it, and then roll it, and put saltfish in the middle, and roll it like a sushi. I mean, pretty amazing actually. But of course, all the hoteliers that took part were mainly up north. But I'm hoping when the time we come on next year, Independence, Souffre, because I really, while I'm the judge, I know Souffre guys down there very clever and very creative. I hope we can have get the super chefs involved next year. I'm saying it's called our it's independent cuisine challenge, called cuisine challenge. You know, the person won a chef jacket and everybody got an apron, they got a prize from, Harry Edwards. It's a really nice event, you know. So I would say to you, my dish would be my green banana soup with the saltfish salsa. I think it really can show the diversity of our saltfish and green banana, but of course in a unique way, you know.
Definitely. And talking about uniqueness, here's the question. What do you believe really sets your restaurant apart, from others?
Well, I think first and foremost the staff. You know, whoever comes to work for me, whether the ups and downs, they're unique in themselves. So, so that's in itself. We want to survive it, I suppose. But ultimately, I really think the fact that right now we have the menu, the fact that we're very friendly, the fact that you can come in. Actually, my door is not generally open. She goes, Chef, your door is never open. I said, because you can make reservations. And of course, you can knock the door. I like to think if you knock the door, we're there, we'll feed you. I mean, I had a perfect example of that a few years ago when a group of 20 persons knocked my door. I was on the balcony. I brought them in. I cooked. The customer poured their drinks and wrote it down. And then they set the table. And then, I mean, they went viral with that. You know what I mean? So I think it's about that shared love. I mean, there's a sign on the wall of the restaurant. You enter as strangers, leave as friends. That's kind of motto, you know. We have a simple thing like the handbag stand, your cold towels, We have things that makes us uniquely Orlando's. I mean, doesn't mean that we're any different than anybody else. I think whatever you do in your business, just make it consistent, respectful, and understand the valuation of a customer. And this thing like the customer is always right, that is not the case because I'm a customer, I'm never always right. What you need to be respectful to the customer in their opinion and how they transfer it, That's what I'm trying to say. I really want to see Super set up our own restaurant association, and that's what I plan going forward. But I would definitely say you love it to have that conversation where we can get us together in a room. That would be great. That's your challenge. I'm saying. Um, but if you don't mind, I can switch a little bit to the community at large. I mean, one of my biggest complaints for many years, and I say before, not to sort of knock anybody, but this is a conversation. We are a tourism destination. The fact that we have not acknowledged, um, let's say, the movement of people of disability. We need to recognize that since we want to promote tourism, we need to have accessibility to disability. Our street corners, our pavements, they need to be lower. They can push a wheelchair up it. I mean, to think you're in a wheelchair and you can't get around. I'm saying it's quite difficult because there's no ramps so much in the communities. I mean, the Sulphur Springs, I've been saying for a long time. I'm sure they're working on it, but I don't know about it, so I'm going to keep mentioning it. I've been saying it for a long time. The Sulphur Springs is our number one location for tourism, and yet there's no accessibility for disability to go down the steps or go into the baths. That's something I've been saying for the last 20 years now since I've been here. You cannot say our Sulphur Springs is a place for us to rejuvenate, and the people who need access to rejuvenate cannot access it. I'm saying there is no the toilets themselves need to be. If you're a wheelchair, you cannot turn around. There's no toilet there for going for a person in the bathroom and everything. In your place of location, which is the number one location. So clearly, we need to address those issues. And if we are addressing them, let us, the public, know what's going on so we can stop shouting about it. I'm saying I was very happy to see that they have eventually got my the idea that I proposed to them about the clay pots. So we got rid of the plastic buckets. But I'm still happy to see there's some movements down there. But at the end of the day, we cannot be a location for tourist destination and we have no accessibility for disability. That is ridiculous. Pave our ways, road more accessible. The toilets in the local toilets should be accessible for wheelchair access, so you can turn around, if whatever. These are small things that we can definitely address as a community at large. And like I said, if they are doing these things, let the people know so we can say coming soon. So that's my own local, observation that I've been trying to get out there. So thank you for the opportunity to share that. Yeah.
You're indeed welcome. 10:30 a.m. in Surface and Lotion, of course, the Eastern Caribbean. Just taking a pause to we have a few comments there. We have Mark Shalmine. Good morning and congratulations. Continue the great work and thanks for sharing the love.
Yeah, that's a family. Okay.
That discussion, you touch base with me asking about challenges. Though we could sit here and look at what sets us apart, we have to also think of how do you navigate, the day-to-day challenges. And it's as it is something definitely that one can't get away from, and you've nailed that nicely. Thank you so much for that. Um, Something we never want to get from people who accept. What advice would you actually give to young Caribbean chefs or maybe persons who want to emulate? What can you share? How can you inspire or motivate them?
Well, one of the things I would also do, don't try to emulate, be yourself. There's one Orlando. So you need to acknowledge who you are. I don't need to be, when I, as an individual, is that my mission is simple. My mission is always been to make Caribbean cuisine more internationally recognized globally. That is the mission. So the opportunity when I travel. But I always tell people, first and foremost, that if you choose this industry, do not chase money. If you're chasing money in the industry, this is not the industry for you. Because at the end of the day, you will accomplish money by doing certain things. What you got to do is focus on your passion. If you love to cook and it's something you think you can manage to be in the industry, knock on doors. Sometimes, I remember whenever I travel internationally, sometimes I call maybe one of the top hotels or top restaurant in the city I'm going to. I said, oh, by the way, my name is so and so. I'm coming from the Caribbean. Do you mind if I come meet your chef or something? Just have a conversation. I mean, the most you can tell is no. The most you can tell is no. One of the things that we also do a lot right now at the restaurant, we do school programs. I had a school from the UK last week, and we do training programs. I have another school coming from Martinique in a few weeks' time. So again, we do training programs. For the young people, first rule of kitchen out of home, never cook in a bad mood. What defines a mood? Your mood could be that as a chef, people say, oh, chef, why are you in a bad mood? That's a mood of the people, but my heart to cook is never in a bad mood. My heart to present my food is in a bad mood. So I tell you, if you're in a mood where you feel passionate, people may try to get you in a different place, but your mood to cook, to taste flavors and different ideas, that's what you got to do. Learn your knife skills. It's critically important. Using a knife is a tool. And make sure you have the best quality tool you can have. Doesn't mean buy the most expensive, but the best quality for what you're doing. You see, use it at the right time. Know your equipment. Many cooks or chefs that have come to me, I ask them about certain kitchen tools, equipment, and they have no idea. If I said to somebody, go get me a spider, they're looking at me like, what's a spider? That is crazy. If you come to a kitchen, a professional kitchen, today's world is so easy to go and Google every kitchen equipment that you can find in the kitchen, from a spider to a chimoise to a mandolin to a chronicle spoon to all these to a cannellini cutter. Everything that you want is actually on the line. So there's no reason for you to come to a professional kitchen and the chef says, "Go and get me a spider," and you're looking for a spider on the wall. You know what I'm saying? So learn your equipment, learn your tools, which is important. Um, One of my pet aids, come to do not come to work in your chef's uniform. You know, at the end of the day, if you're a person as good as you are, people know you're a chef, so you don't have to wear the uniform on the street. I would say people tend to kind of when you're chefs, you can wear your jacket as you're leaving work. You say, I'm off duty, I'm going on, come out the change, I'm going to go. When you come into the kitchen, wearing your chef jacket is just not appropriate because you deal with food and hygiene. You must also remember, as a chef and a cook, you have people's life in your hand because they trust you that you're gonna whatever you present to them is safety first. It's been stored correctly. You haven't cross-contaminated. You use the right thing. And make sure people don't leave your business getting sick. So these, are, I mean, you have a big responsibility dealing with food because people trust you that you're preparing food at the high standard. If you can have your chickens left out, I mean, all these kind of things, chicken left in the kitchen and fish lying around and all that stuff, using the correct chopping boards, these are all part of the industry. Again, it's not not an easy industry, but it's one that can deliver you great joy because we all have to eat. And so what we have to do is figure out how do we transfer our passion into a profession. But from a passion, your passion must understand your basic stuff. One of my things also is when you come to an interview at Orlando's, I require you to have a health card. St. Lucia is not like everywhere else. You know, the demand for the industry are not as stringent as it could be anywhere else. 'Cause I'm from the UK, I appreciate it. The only thing we require you to come for when you come to our job for interview, my restaurant, is a health card. Because what tend to people do, but if I come to interview and I don't get a job, I spend money. What you've done, you invested in yourself. You didn't spend money, you invested in yourself. That is a requirement. It's like putting your shoes on. If that's a requirement. You haven't lost anything. You may not have got this job, but at least you have the health card to go somewhere else. So if you're really serious about the job, make sure you come with a health card in hand and make sure you come for presented yourself in a manner that you come for a job. You didn't come to a dance hall or a party. You come to the professional, you know what I mean? You know, and do your research. If you come to my restaurant or any restaurant, all of us are online these days. So you go for interview, prepared to be answered questions about the business. Or you can say, you know what, I'm coming for interview. I did a little research. You can say what the restaurant serves, how it serves. You can say what's the ratings and the stuff. Yeah? So then when the new person's in interviewing now, wow, you did your research, you know. You don't just come there and say, I want a job. Most people come to me and say, I want a job. I don't give them a job because I'm not there for a job. I want you to be passionate to do something, be passionate about the industry. So a young man actually I met a few weeks ago in the competition says, "Oh, he came for a job for me when I was at a hotel. I never gave him the job." I said, "But he remembered it." But the point was, he still went on and do his own thing. You know what I'm saying? And maybe when he came for the interview with me, he was not ready at that time. But me turning him away motivated him to go and do his own thing. So every no is a possible yes. You know what I'm saying? So, and when someone turns you down from position, the door is not closed, the window open. Always remember you are as good as you want to be, and every no tells you something else. It tells you that, and when people are negative toward you, because I get sometimes, oh, but Chef Orlando. I had a situation last week, someone tell me, oh, Chef Orlando, you're always in the media. And I said, why is that? Is it because I'm trying to hug the media, or because I want to get my message out? My message is simple. I want to promote Caribbean cuisine. No one can hear me with my doors closed and they don't talk to me. So if the media is my avenue and gives me opportunity to talk about my cuisine and talk about St. Lucia cuisine and raise an awareness, this is my opportunity. And the last note, before I finish up, I mean, I think people tend to forget that I don't know if people know my story long enough, but before I came to Lucia, I was actually quite well known in the UK. I mean, obviously, trying to promote Caribbean cuisine in the UK was a bit more difficult than it was now. But obviously, from 1991, I was actually on the international national news in the UK promoting Caribbean cuisine. Of course, there was very much the more Jamaican slant to it. But before I came to Caribbean, before I came to Lucia, I was already on that mission promoting vegan Caribbean cuisine to a global approach, and even done spent 2 years in Singapore. So while St. Lucia has given me my home for the last nearly 30 years, I like to think that my mission was already on the course before I got here.
Nice. takes me to Mark Shalman is asking, how is the training for food vendors?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you asked that question actually, because I actually think one of the things that we need to do is um, give our food vendors that customer service. I've been saying for the food vendors for a long time that I would love to be part of the team to help to elevate them because at the end of the day, our food vendors are in two categories. They're in the making money because they're there for making money, but the other side of them, they're in the customer service industry. The customers are coming to them and asking them questions. So I've been saying for a lot of food vendors before, sometimes it would be a great idea if they could even put a local sign next to the ingredients, pumpkin, dasheen, whatever. Because that means when a guest comes to them now, who's a tourist, who's not going to buy from you, because sometimes, unless you stay in an Airbnb, if you stay in a hotel, they're not going to buy it. You mean? So sometimes, but they're asking questions. So maybe if you label some of your products, you can, it takes 2 minutes for the customer to look at it and say, oh, okay. And while you're selling to us, the local person, you know what I mean? So, but customer service is critically important. How we communicate. Some of the words we use when with the customers in front of us. And you also be mindful. Just because our tourists don't speak patois to you in front of you, doesn't mean they don't understand patois. Because a lot of islands like Haiti and different countries which don't openly say it here, but you don't know where they're from. And yet, so sometimes we speak thinking, oh, you go into the local part, there's nothing wrong. But sometimes we're talking about the people, not realizing that they can understand what we're saying.
Which is true.
So you just be mindful what you speak, I would say.
Okay, Delia Charles. It's true, they need to improve access to the pools. The stairs are too steep for the elderly and people with knee problems. Gloria Leo, good morning, Chef. Nice to see you on House Guest. I was in St. Lucia some years ago and worked for you in Suffre before returning to London.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm the I'm the best kept secret. That's my slogan. But actually, I'm quite close to the cemetery. As you come down into Sufa on the left hand side, um, there's a sign there. Sorry you missed us, but here's the thing: we do travel. So if you ever want me to come and cook for you in London, let me know. I'll come to London. And part of the challenge is that. Outside of the restaurant, I do private dining. We will occasionally, I get invited around the world, to be a guest chef. This year, last year we did Dubai, we did London, we did Brussels, we did, all over St. Martin. This year so far, the most I've done is Miami. But we'll see what comes up. There's a few more places in mind. Um, but no, I mean the idea is that these these are what kind of keep me going in the quiet season. One of the things I want to touch on as well is that our challenge going forward this year. I'm sure you may listen to the global news, but on the ground, we need to understand what's happening right now. Whatever tariffs are going on in the US is going to affect us down the road. Our local meat, our local fish is what we start to go back to because what's going to happen, the international stuff is going to cost money. I'm saying, I've been saying for years, it's a funny thing, and I'm not being critical of America, but if you look at, if China decided to take away all their product from America, all the stuff at the airport has to go. You go to the airport and he says, "Welcome to New York, made in China." So this situation is a global situation. It trickles down to us. So I've been saying for a long time, even though I'm in tourism, I believe that we need to be more sustainable along amongst ourselves in the community. I think we need to be looking at finding ways to do our shopping, look at our ministry to see how we can do more trading with Martinique. Martinique's 1 hour away, yet we bring all our stuff from the US when we can get the stuff from Martinique. From a food point of view, I mean, obviously there are different ways there. I go in this. I was in Martinique a couple weeks ago. I'm looking at the ornaments and everything else, the things they make, and they make beautiful stuff. sometimes our stuff here we sometimes sell. We don't sell. Our product is not made here, so we don't. I think we need to be very mindful. How do we be more productive in our community, and be more mindful to see how we can be more sustainable. Look at more organic. Look at more shopping around ourselves, get high quality, and saying we are a unique island. Yesterday I was over by there is so, and I'm telling you, it's a beautiful to see discovery of St. Lucia. I mean, we have some amazing places here. I mean, which I was as wow. So I think there is definitely a need for us to be more self awareness what we are. If anything that the U.S. president has done has given us motivation to be more take care of ourselves and be more self awareness and be um, shop locally, produce locally. My slogan is called "Ingredients Without Passport."
I'm happy you said that as well. You made mention of what really keeps you going when the season is actually slow and culinary training,
Yeah.
Dubai, Martinique, Brussels. But then, how about our very own let charity begins at home for
Oh
sure?
no,
Because we may
no.
have a lot of young persons, especially riding software, and I think it's fitting. And I guess you and I will speak up the record. We will. It would be interesting to actually remember that cooking competition that was planned and
Oh yeah, I would
so it would
love.
be nice to do that.
Well, I would love to. I mean, I do a lot of. Again, people reach out to me. Like I said, I mean, I do a lot of stuff with Cashews Comprehensive, also the school in Viewfort. Um, the days of Super calling me, I don't get much of those calls. So maybe they need to call me and then talk. Let's talk. And saying maybe Super conference is a look at shout out to you. I mean, I very rarely get a call to come and do any support. I can't knock on your door. I mean, I can. I've done before in the past, but my services are always welcome to offer that opportunity. But I also would like to think that, if many people know me when I used to be at a hotel, I've gone to many of the schools, especially Super Comprehensive, who are now, those young people, those kiddios. I've got a nice photograph in my restaurant of the school kids. I remember training. I don't know who these people are, but I'm sure they remind me who they are when I see them. No, I'll be very happy to do that. But again, we have to find the cooks and chefs. I don't. It's not because you want a job. You because unfortunately, the challenge for me is that I want to see if you have a passion to care, to learn, and ultimately, if you want a job, what tends to happen, you'll come to me for a job for a while, and then someone pays you $5 more, you go next door. Because of the money, you're not motivated by the passion. You see? So I would definitely think that I'm happy to work with anybody who wants a training. I mean, maybe something we'll do with Super FM. We can probably do some training programs. I'm happy to use my kitchen. If I right now I have so I have Martinique schools coming, the British kids are coming to me. I'm happy for the Super kids to come, but we need to put in the program, find a ways to cover the cost, or at least doing the training. And I'm not talking about paying me. I'm talking about at least if I'm going to give people food to eat and everything else, there's a cost for that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I'm happy to, if anybody with a program, come to me, let's discuss it. I mean, I'm happy to, in my quiet periods, do once a week training with persons who are keen for trying to look for chef knives, we'll look for uniforms, we'll do to help you to develop. Maybe even a program where the hoteliers, because I tend to end up training the people, then they go to the hotels anyway. I mean, I've trained so many persons who come to my kitchen, and after 6 months, they want to go to a hotel, and that's fine too. But then all my effort is, but it's fine. I think maybe the idea we work with a few hoteliers where they can support me to train, and then the least staff have a basic awareness before they go to the hotel. Maybe that's a program we can put together.
Definitely so. We have iconic St. Lucia. Good interview as always, Orlando. You've started an amazing feature in catalyzing the sense of culinary pride in local cuisine and our indigenous ingredients. We have Simmons Joseph. Chef Orlando, when will you put out a cookbook with all your authentic Caribbean recipes?
Yeah, I have to say to you that I wrote that book already, and
Okay.
I wrote that book. It's just that and I started writing. The book was supposed to be called The Journey in My Life, 'Cause I wanted to kind of, I didn't want it just a cookbook. I wanted a book which is going to represent me because I've been around a long time and seen a lot, but also wanted to kind of put it down into recipes and concepts. So let's not say this year, but I'm going to say to you this year, we're definitely going to push for this year. We're definitely going to push for this year. I think the main reason as well is for my mom, because I think some of you heard me talk about my mom. My mom is 85 right now, and I've always reminded myself that a lot of us as well, moms have inspired us. I mean, when I started to cook, my mom, well, she was cooking, then I started to show interest, and she stopped cooking. And I always keep with the joke when my first interview as a young boy, 16 years old. Actually, I was 15, going 16, and she drove me to interview, and then she came into the interview next to me, and she sat next to me in the interview, and at the interview, and I got the job. So what am I saying? Sometimes, if we can acknowledge, give our moms the flowers while they're here, while they're still available. I mean, I know many persons who are going through the loss of their moms. I mean, my dear lady Claudia Charmaine, yeah, she lost her mom a year ago. So big up our mother-in-law there. But she's always with us in our, in spirit. And I know my friend here as well down the road here, Miss Barnett, who passed away as well. So I know there's a lot of elderly people who are not here with us. My friend John, at the end of the day, we know we know the time is coming. Any of us over 50, 60, our parents is above a certain age. So we know the time is coming, so we need to acknowledge their flowers, acknowledge who they are, their contribution to us. And even another step further is also to acknowledge we have Mother's Day coming in a couple of months, next month. Those history of the food is missing. What concerns me is that our age group are not cooking like our parents did. And so when our parents go, at my parents' age, that history of the way they cook, the traditional cooking is going with them. So it'd be great to challenge you guys to say to you, speak to your mother-in-laws, or your grandmothers, your grand-aunties, and get a look at recipe from them, which can represent who they are, because that's our history. Our young people today are not cooking the same way. Our young people today are eating more MDs or KFCs and whatever it may be. They're not even cooking. I mean, when I go to certain restaurants in certain areas, I'm not saying they can't go out, but the amount of people going out on a Sunday, when we were growing up, we had to eat Sunday rice and peas. We had home and we had our dinners. It was really about relaxing, with chilling with people. So today's young people are not eating our traditional food. They're not enjoying those basic stuff. I mean, you tell a young person go and go some cuckoo. They're like, "What's cuckoo?" Or go and do some, go and boil some saltfish and green banana. They're like, I mean, I don't want that. So I really think we need to find a way to retain those grandmas and grand aunties and all the people's history. So we retain that and keep that traditional flavor going. You know, I'm a chef who loves Caribbean cuisine, but I also respect the people gone before me to elevate those traditional stuff, man. And so all I'm trying to do is just take it from that traditional way to elevate it to the presentation. But I definitely want to retain the flavor. That's the point, man.
Definitely. And again, Iconic Solution did say once we can embed culinary cultural pride in our gastronomy, we can reach any height.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, right? If one thing that Lisa acknowledged to me was that 50 best restaurants was interesting because on the list there was 8 restaurants from St. Martin. 8 restaurants. So what it tells me that St. Lucia need to maybe we should create a gastronomy week in St. Lucia, because the thing in St. Martin they've been doing it for a few years now. They had me last year as one of their guest chefs to come out, and what they did, they invite about 18 chefs from around the world, the Caribbean and around the world. And what we were doing, we were going there and we were invited to eat at restaurants. We had a secret app where we give our opinion. And at the end of the session, end of the 2 weeks, we the chefs, would then vote the best restaurants. Now you think about it that this idea was able to now St. Martin at the 50 restaurants, have 80 of the top restaurants out of the whole region. You know what I'm saying? That tells you that St. Martin have decided that they want to raise the profile of gastronomy. And I think St. Lucia now can look at this way to do our own thing as well. You know, what is gastronomy St. Lucia? What defines us or what defines our gastronomy? I'm not saying we go totally fine dining, but what we could do is look at creative ways of using our local ingredients. You know, I think to give a bigger shout out to my guy on the beaches by the market there, Island Chef. Island Chef, my boy is doing some good things there. Got a nice local location, and also the one that guys over by the over by the beach park there as well. But the point is, what defines our cuisine? You know, I would love to talk with, again, to create our own version of that in St. Lucia, because that's the only way we're going to elevate our cuisine to the next level. So maybe that's something I could love to work on. You see?
It is now 5 minutes to the hour. It's been interesting and how time flies.
Yeah,
But we definitely have to agree we're getting to the end of this lovely,
yeah.
in an interesting discussion. In closing, I leave it with you to share your comments.
Well, I have to say to you guys, the mission is simple, and I keep repeating the mission. The best cuisine in the Caribbean should be Caribbean. This concept of hotels, and I don't want to pick on hotels, but this idea that we do Caribbean night in the Caribbean has to stop. We cannot be doing Caribbean night in the Caribbean. Every night in the Caribbean is Caribbean night. When you leave the island, you can have. I've never gone to Martinique and or gone to. Sorry, I've never gone to France and have a French night in France. I've gone to Italy, have an Italian night in Italy. Why do we have Caribbean nights in the Caribbean? That's a question for you. I mean, because that tells us that we tend to be doing our cuisine as the occasion. We should not be the occasion. We should be the norm. We should be what is consistently had in the Caribbean. And by the way, we may want to do Italian night. By the way, you may want to do a French night, if you mean. But the hoteliers need to kind of figure out to get away from this occasional night of the Caribbean. And I don't mean to hit any hotel because well, that's what the customer wants. What the customer wants is an experience, and they've flown down here for a unique solution experience. So we now need to believe in ourselves, in our product. This is our product. This is solution product. This is iconic solution. This is our product. And we need to make sure when people come to solution, they get the very best of our product. They didn't come the best to get the best of New York, get the best of London, they get the best of the Caribbean and best of solution. So for all us in tourism industry, understand the value of tourism. Tourism defined by we rely on people coming to us. So just be mindful. If the planes stop flying tomorrow, what do? We need to be more sustainable. Take more, make sure we can dine around. This situation where sometimes our prices are at a point where we, the solutions, cannot go to it. Wouldn't it be great that some of the places do open up to say, once a month, if you're a Lucian, you can get a discount, whatever, or get a real good, a nice stay in a nice hotel. Again, I said I'm not knocking the hotels, guys, because this is the hotel cities we're in. But we should not be excluding each other, you know what I'm saying? But also as well, when we go to visit each other, we need to be respectful to each other. We need to, because sometimes you go to places and then we get too familiar. Sir, I know you. I'm a customer. While I may want to be reflective with you, at least show me I'm a customer too, without dropping your guard, That's what I'm saying. Yeah? Sometimes we get that point. But I have to say, though, that I commend Soufriere. Soufriere, we are on the path because we are the best location in St. Lucia. We're the location where people find St. Lucia. First thing they say, when they see St. Lucia, they see Soufriere. Whether they like it or not, they see Soufriere. Even people up north say, oh, what's Soufriere so far? I said, you go to New York before you go to Soufriere. But when you come to Soufriere, you don't want to leave, yeah? So what I'm saying is that we ourselves need to be all our chest up and be proud. And when we accomplish, whether it be people like me, a small restaurant, or a massive masses, or anybody else, give them a pat on the shoulder. Because guess what? That's elevating possibility for you. I want a big shout out to my dear lady Claudia, as usual. Also, a big shout out to the whole Shaman family, of course, with the death of our 1 year anniversary. We want to make sure that, be respectful, and she's always with us no matter what goes on. But also a big shout out to my team. Please keep doing what you're doing. You know, we do what we do, and any opportunity to raise a profile, we keep doing that. Um, and I think at the end of the day, again, thank the community of Sufra, and also thank of course, the last word always go to my food vendors. My food vendors, remember, I tell you, every year we do the complimentary lunch. It's going to be December. And make sure I give you invitation. You turn up, for the complimentary lunch that we continue to do. And I would love to have St. Lucia make the 13th of December National Vendors Day, where we, St. Lucia, celebrate our vendors with a restaurant meal or lunch or something. Make the 13th of December National Vendors Day to recommend our vendors, whether we're the food vendors, store vendors, but we give our vendors respect and due before they pass.
And this is where we end our house guest edition today, Thursday, the 10th day of April 2025. It's been immense pleasure. Thank you to our celebrity chef, none other than Orlando Satchell.
Thank you so much,
To
Anne.
you who send in your various comments, we do appreciate that. Thank you so much to our listening audience as well. Thank you for tuning in.
Share the love.
Have a productive day. Remember to share the love.